Hello there, and welcome to another Power On Podcast Portable. How are you all doing out there? I am Sushi, one of your hosts, and with me is the great Taylor.
Why do you say that?
I don't know.
Hi. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm okay. The ankle is slowly getting better. Never.
Suck it up, Taylor.
I will when I'll be able to walk normally again.
Yeah. Should be soon, though.
We'll see.
Hopefully. Cool.
So, today,
since we are doing a portable episode again, we are going to put a bit more focus on a specific game today.
Pew.
And you actually brought up this game as our topic. And I think it was an excellent choice, something that most people are probably aware of, but perhaps haven't tried or played. It's not something that seems very common.
I'd agree with that. I mean, I like the series. I really like the series, and I enjoyed playing the games from the first one of, I don't even know how to put it, the latter half of the series on the PlayStation, and I would say it was uncommon because just, I don't know, I like the series, but I'd never heard of the game until I had seen it when I had bought it, so yeah.
And of course, we are alluding to the Metal Gear Solid franchise.
Dun, dun, dun.
And the game we're actually choosing today is Metal Gear Solid Ghost Babel, or Babel,
Dun, 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 dun.
which was released on the Game Boy Color, a platform that you probably wouldn't expect to see Metal Gear on, actually.
Yeah, that wasn't expecting that whatsoever. I was looking through Super Potato, walking around, minding my business, buying video games, and I seen that, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta get this! And so, I picked it up.
Yeah, it's a pretty old game now. I think it was 2000 when it was released. I believe it's still basically the Metal Gear team, right?
It might be the team. I know that Hideo Kojima, he just kind of produced it. He really didn't, I don't think he put anything into it story-wise or anything.
I think he was part of the story. I thought he was the one who helped write it.
I didn't think he was a writer. I think he was just a producer.
Oh, okay. But he's still involved in some capacity,
right.
Of course.
Well, because the thing is that Konami Europe approached them about making a Metal Gear Solid game on the Game Boy Color, and they're like, cool, whatever, money. And so they made this game, and it's an alternate timeline as opposed to the other games in the Metal Gear Solid series. So it takes place, 7 years after Outer Haven?
Right. This would be essentially Metal Gear Solid, but in an alternate universe.
Woo!
Which is, yeah, it's hard to believe it as you're playing it. It's kind of confusing. If you went in, as I did, blindly and not knowing that, I was just thinking this was actually a part of the regular franchise, but it's not.
Yeah, it was really, knowing that it was kind of an interesting delineation from what Kojima had initially set with the Solid series, and I was just, I don't know, I don't mind it, like the story-wise and stuff. It takes a lot from Metal Gear Solid, I would say.
Yeah,
like,
sort of.
The people, they definitely, when they made it, I don't know, like, maybe it was the same team, but if not, they definitely emulated the original team very well.
Yeah.
With some of it, so.
Almost paying tribute, it seems.
Right.
Yeah, in a way that's kind of good, but in another way you kind of get into the game thinking, well, this just feels like Metal Gear Solid anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I guess getting into the story itself, this is a very text and plot-heavy game for the Game Boy Color, which is a bit surprising. I was not expecting quite as much. I thought it might be just a little bit more action-orientated, and they might just throw in little bits of, okay, no, this is the plot. But they do give you quite a bit to deal with, and it's just as confusing as you would expect it to be as a Metal Gear game.
Yeah, it definitely has its surprises and plot twists in it. The thing, I guess, that kind of surprised me, not necessarily the story so much as, how should I put this, kind of how it's presented.
Okay.
Things, they go with the approach of putting it in chapters or sections or parts, And I had played, Portable Ops and Peace Walker before I'd finally getting around to playing this, because this was the first time actually playing it. And so when I was playing through it, I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. It's got it's broken down into these parts and stuff, which in my head I was thinking, okay, something maybe like Portable Ops or Peace Walker, where the parts are really, really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And the first chapter doesn't help that, because the first chapter's really quick. But after that, the chapters get really, really, really lengthy. There'll be times I seriously the second chapter took about, first time playing through it, maybe 18, 22 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think it took me 20 minutes as well.
So yeah, it's just kind of interesting. Like, the pacing of the chapters are very erratic at times.
Yeah.
Because you'll have that first chapter is really short, and then a few really long chapters and a really short chapter, and it's not bad per se. It has that pacing kind of how in Metal Gear Solid, where there'll be certain things that it's just taking a long time to do this one thing, and then right after you do that, subsequently 3 other things happen real quick, pow pow pow, and
you start blitzing.
Right, and then it'll slow down once again. So kind of very, very typical Japanese style in a way. It has that slow building action, and then once it does hit that climactic part, it's really quick with it, and then it goes back down to the slow rising action.
Yeah, it's definitely weird in a way when I was playing that, and I thought, man, this game's going to be really long. And then I got to whatever chapter that first battle is. I think it's the 4th chapter.
With the boss?
Yes.
Was it Slasher Hawk?
With Slasher Hawk, and you play through it, and it's really fast. And then I thought, whoa, is this just going to go like this now all the time? Is it going to be slow, 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 and then suddenly boss battle is one entire chapter, and then a slow chapter again? And it seemed to do that for most of the game, which was fine. I mean, I don't necessarily see why they needed to put in chapters even. They could have just, kept continuing the story per se, but I think they did that after, because once you beat the game, you can just revisit certain parts of the game. So that must have been why they chose to do that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what spurred them on to do that. Maybe it was this, I don't know. Maybe
it was easier for them to build the game as well.
It's possible. Maybe it was just for that extra bit after you beat the game and revisiting just a certain chapter or something, instead of having to go through the whole game again just for this one spot or something.
Yeah, perhaps. What did you think about some of the characters in the game? Metal Gear's always famous for the characters, so.
I mean, you had good old Campbell, and Mei Ling makes an appearance. Good old Mei Ling. And then you had Weasel,
new guy.
Who was a new guy that I never talked to.
Yeah, I never talked to him either.
Like him and McBride, I never really cared for those two. Those two were kind of just like, don't care for you guys. Whatever. Yeah. I know that sounds kind of crappy, but they're not in the field, man. They don't know it. They're just so they're the ones that you can call on your codec. So I honestly didn't care for those two. I personally, probably my favorite character is Mei Ling, because I always like the quotes that she gives, because I always find those kind of interesting.
She's got a good personality in all the games that she's in.
Right. So, and I do like Campbell, but I don't think I don't know how he is in the English version. The Japanese version, I think it wasn't a problem, but I don't know if the text sizes made it an issue to kind of keep his personality the same in the dialogue, or if they had to kind of truncate it a bit.
No, it was fine from what I could tell. We had about 3 lines of text on each screen whenever there was text. Is that about the same for the Japanese? Or?
Well, yeah, but I mean more so like just I don't know if it made it really long-winded, because you'll have certain words that just are a lot shorter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you have 2 kanji together, but that makes like a 11 character word in English or something. So
yeah, I don't really recall it being too bad. They might have just abbreviated some stuff and just tried to shorten his dialogue a bit, but he still seemed to be basically the same character. Okay. It didn't seem any less intelligent or anything.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't mind Campbell. And do you want to cover some of the field characters? Sure.
We have another one is Chris, who is essentially like Meryl. Basically, in this game, she's
the Meryl of Ghost Babel.
Right. And then we have Jimmy, who is the I don't know, the scientist who
The
worked on Metal
rotund.
Gear. The rotund scientist who works on Metal Gear, who basically plays Otacon,
but
but is
worse.
much worse. Yeah, much less likable. He barely has any part in the game, essentially, too. I mean, he only shows up a handful of times.
And those times he does.
You just don't even care about him.
You really.
You just skip through the text. You don't really care what he has to say.
You're just kind of like, oh, you still read it, but each time you read it, he's just his whininess.
Yeah, and for someone who doesn't say very much, you definitely get that feeling of whininess and wimpiness. Somebody who doesn't belong in the field. I guess that's what they were going for. I mean, they did a good job if that's what their intention was. And yeah, aside from that, then we get right into some of the villains.
Dun dun dun.
We have an assassin group, basically, known as the Black Chamber.
Right.
Which consists of 4 members.
Dun dun dun.
Well, yes, 4 members. Sorry, I might have spoiled it.
So, no, I think this is kind of something that, unfortunately, is going to be something that has to come up. Is that there will be some spoilers? So,
it's not that big a spoiler, really.
Right.
There's 5 members, but 4 members are introduced at the start. We have Blackheart's Viper, who basically takes the lead role of the team. Then we have 3 more members in Slasher Hawk, who is probably my favorite of the villains. I thought he was kind of cool. He's just this guy with boomerangs from Australia, and he has a hawk that's his totem that flies around on the screen. He's a pretty decent villain. And the other 2 are Marionette Owl and Pyro Bison. And all these characters basically are shadows of the characters of Metal Gear Solid. Would you say that?
Yeah, they especially with like Pyro Bison, he reminded me so much of Raven. Like just how the fight is presented, how his character kind of is, and like after the fight and everything was just kind of very Raven-esque. I was just kind of, which I didn't mind because I really liked Raven in Metal Gear Solid, but it was just like
he has a. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you didn't want to try to do something different with it or anything, just kind of.
Yeah, he has a line of text, though, that was cool. It said how many members you had killed. And I think that changes, right? He says a line as in, you've killed X number of people on this island today or something. My number was 16. Was yours also 16?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Because I think that actually follows how many people you killed. Because at the end of the game, I'd only killed like 23 people or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't think I didn't kill very many people. So
I didn't either. So I think that actually did check how many people you did kill though, up to that point.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it did because one of the other fights is there's a timer and they mention how much time is left.
Right.
Even though it says it right there in the top right corner.
Right.
It's like, you have this much time.
Yeah, you hit the guy and he says, well, you have this much time left.
Well, I know that.
Yeah. I mean, Marionette Owl is basically supposed to be Psycho Mantis on a much lower scale.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty uninspired villain.
I really did not like that fight.
Yeah, I didn't really like it. It wasn't that it was difficult. It just wasn't very interesting.
It was just really annoying. Because you'd have these little puppets or marionettes or whatever the hell they're called, and you'd shoot one or you'd shoot him and the screen turns all white.
Blinding you with a flashbang.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like... And then if you shoot his little helpers, they throw knives, and it's just not a fun fight.
Yeah. Not very long or anything, just not very fun, that's all.
Right.
And not very difficult either.
Nah. I honestly didn't think the boss fights were that difficult.
Yeah, typically not. Viper gave me some trouble. I had to really become more patient for that fight. I didn't realize the pattern, and I was just trying to rush in, which is pretty foolish to do in most Metal Gear games.
Foolish mortal.
But once you figure that out, it's not very hard either.
Yeah, that can be a bit of a pain if you're trying to just blitz them.
Yeah, it doesn't work. But yeah, those are the villains in the game. So I still like them. I mean, you do get the sense that, okay, they just tried to copy and paste, basically, and just change little bits of details.
To a degree, yeah, it feels...
Yeah, to a degree.
And yeah, you can say the same thing for the other games in Metal Gear Solid to an extent. But given that this was like a a delineation from the timeline kind of thing. I was kind of figuring that they might do something different, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially since you're going from 3D and reverting back to 2D, I'd figure they might try some different things.
Yeah, they basically copied a lot of things from Metal Gear Solid and just tried to say, okay, this is an alternate universe, but most of the stuff is kind of the same.
Yeah, which I'm not against or anything. I don't know, I just figured it would be a little bit different when I was first playing it.
Yeah, it's fine, though. It still turned out to be an excellent game.
Oh, for sure. I just honestly am just so... What's the word I want to use? I'm just extremely surprised and astonished by how they were able to incorporate 3D aspects into the 2D games. It was just kind of... I don't know, I thought I applaud that.
Yeah.
So, some things that I wish they kind of had worked on a little bit, maybe, was having the guards hear your footsteps, maybe? I mean, I know that might have been a difficult thing, or they might not have had space to program that, or what have you. But you could, like, walk... They could have tried to made the guards a little bit more
They have that a little bit with those panels on the floor. I mean, they could have put those maybe more in the game to make the guards more aware.
Right.
But they're not that prevalent in the game. There's only a few parts where that seems to be around.
Right. Or how they do it in some sections where they have birds, and when you startle the birds, the guards are like, what the fuck? And they go after you.
That's only at the beginning, though, too.
Right, that's early on. So,
yeah, the guards are a bit kooky. They don't seem to be aware of you very often. I mean, there was points where I would stand basically right beside them and just around the corner of a wall, and they'd be basically looking at me, and they would just turn around and walk away.
Right, and I understand, Game Boy Color game, so there are going to be limitations unless you want them to be just omnipotent. Then, not omnipotent, but is that what I want to use?
Just almost unfair. I'm sure if you put it on a harder setting, it's probably going to do that for you. I mean, I played it on normals, so.
Same here. So, what did you think of the overall level designs of each?
Just I guess to touch upon that as well as another aspect of the game, I thought that the presentation of the entire game is top notch, as you would expect from Metal Gear. They did not skimp out on anything. They went and pushed the hardware as hard as they possibly could. You can feel that as you play the game. With that said, I think that the level design is good, but confusing at times. I wish there was some sort of map display you could have accessed or something aside from just being in the top corner of the screen, and it's so tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that they could have tried to put in something to give the player a little bit more of an idea of where they were going at times. I found myself being really confused sometimes. Not that the maps were really big all the time, but there's one part near just after the half point part of the game where it gets really confusing to follow where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, there's certain parts in the game where you get disoriented very easily, and you're kind of just, where are you supposed to go? A good, I guess, section to bring up are the boxes.
Yeah.
Because you have to use different colored boxes to go through these conveyor belts, and at certain sections of the conveyor belt there are these little blocks that have two different colors on them, and if you have like a yellow box and there's a yellow color, you'll go that direction. Or
the yellow path.
Right, and it can be kind of disorienting because you're trying to get through this to a certain area, but if you don't take the right path, you'll just go back down to the first floor.
Yeah, it's the thing. It keeps dropping you down a floor, so you have to go all the way back up and start again.
Right, and it's just like,
It just feels time-consuming if you don't know where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
And almost cheap in a way.
I wouldn't say cheap, just very...
The idea was good, but maybe not executed as well as it could have been. I think if they didn't drop you a floor, you wouldn't feel as frustrated.
Yeah, it's just very time-consuming, like you said before. I think time-consuming is a good word for it.
Yeah.
It's just like that. I actually didn't mind the power plant. The power plant was, I think, actually set pretty well. I didn't have any issues getting through it. I will say this, chaff grenades are completely useless, it seems, and those stupid freaking those little gun cameras can...
Oh, like gun cameras, yeah.
Yeah, they can go eat a dick for all I care. Because...
You gotta crawl under those tables all the time.
Yeah. So, but what'd you think of the weapons, per se?
Pretty useless, to be honest. I'm just being completely honest there. I mean, not till certain points of the game. I mean, the Nikitas are good, obviously, for destroying panels.
Mm-hmm.
And the C4 doesn't become useful basically until the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from that, I don't really recall needing any weapons for bosses except for basically grenades.
Grenades are king.
You don't really need guns. I mean, you only get 2 guns in the game, but you don't even need them. You basically just need grenades for every boss. So I thought that was kind of weird. I mean, you can use other weapons, but the grenades just seem to be the only thing that's really useful most of the time.
Right, yeah, it seems like they set it to where the grenades were the weapon of choice. And especially,
default weapon.
Yeah, there's some bosses where guns don't even work.
Right.
Unless you're, it's more of a hassle to try to use a gun when you just use grenades. And I never used, like, the C4 except for, well, you can't until really the end or at a certain part in the story. Other than those 2 parts, it's not really...
Which I would expect, though, from the C4. I mean, the mines, though, the mines are absolutely useless. I never use them. Did you use them?
No.
Yeah, they're useless. Every time you put one down, you try to walk away, and you blow yourself up, usually.
Yeah, I never used those, and I lament not having the ability to use the assault rifle more.
Yeah.
Because the assault rifle's cool.
Yeah, it should be more useful, but it's basically... One boss, it's really useful, but otherwise, it's not really that important.
Right. So,
and aside from that, other items, I found it really difficult trying to shift through items. Mm-hmm. Did you notice that when you choose an item, and then if you go to choose something else, it kind of recatalogs it? Yes. So they're never in the same spot. You can't just be passing through and say, okay, I know that box, the yellow box is the 3rd slot. No, every time you go to the 3rd slot, it moved it down because you haven't picked it for a while.
Right, yeah.
It's so frustrating trying to find your weapons and your items like that. They should have just put them in an order so you could have quick switched them to thinking, okay, I know that number 4 is always this.
Yeah, I think it's whatever you choose moves up to the front of the line.
Right.
And then, yeah.
That made it really frustrating at times. Not because it was hard, just because it was annoying.
Time-consuming.
And not even that time-consuming, just more of a nuisance than anything, it felt.
You played it on the Game Boy Advance?
Yes, I played it on the Game Boy Advance.
Okay, I played it on the GameCube with the Game Boy Advance player. Yeah, I cheated. Like, I honestly...
My eyes were on fire.
Yeah, I couldn't... I know. It's just not... I can't see, because I do actually have a Game Boy Advance... Yeah. But I tried playing, and I'm like, no, my place is too dark. My light sucks. It's not good enough unless I was on, like, the surface of the sun. I'm not able to really see it very well. So I played it on Game Boy Advance player, which was really nice. Nice big screen. Could see everything.
How was the animation? Because even on the Game Boy Advance, and I'm sure the Game Boy Color, the animation was fantastic. Like, you could see Snake's, well, I mean, a dot was his face, but you could see his face, you could see his knee pads. You could see his bandana moving as he walked.
Oh, yeah, it was very, very
good arm movements. It was surprisingly well done. I mean, even the guards looked pretty good. You see them yawning, coughing, their body movements. It was really well done.
Extremely impressed in that regard. I was honestly just blown away by how, like, unfortunately, having played Portable Ops and Peace Walker and then playing this, I was kind of always wanting to play more Peace Walker or something. Yeah. But I really wish I could have played this game before I'd played those games, because it's a damn good game for just being a random kind of...
being limited.
Right, being limited in just a random Metal Gear Solid game that just doesn't really get much attention. I would think it's probably because it's not a part of the main story, and it's also in the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, I think partly that it's on the Game Boy Color, people just probably don't even know about it or completely forgotten that it existed.
Right. Which is sad.
Yeah, it is. I guess to go back to the production, they had some really nice cutscenes in there. Not lots of animation, but just it was nice to have that break in pacing in the story to have some cutscenes. The codec scenes are pretty good as well. Mm-hmm. They did a good job overall graphically, like very good job.
The cutscenes, they had some... it was a static image, but there was still some things that would move.
Usually hair.
Or at certain points, people's eyes or facial expressions would change and stuff like that. So that was really... I like that. That was... I mean, you can only do so much. So.
Yeah, and it seems they really tried to do as much as they could. So
for sure.
To bring up a few negative things, I didn't really like the small map in the corner. And again, maybe on the Game Boy player, on the GameCube, it's fine, but at least on the small screen, you can't really see the guards. They are little yellow dots in that green map, but it's very, very hard to see.
I was saying on the Game Boy player, I had no issues. It was nice. Okay. It was there. It was clear, and there was no problems there. I guess if anything, they tried to remedy that with the function of being pressed up against the wall and holding the B button down and being able to see.
Yeah, which I still found there were still far too many blind spots. Even when you could do that, I found that I couldn't see up to a certain point. They always put stuff just out of reach of that camera, it felt like. So you would still be kind of screwed. You'd walk around the corner and you'd kind of look at the small map and see, okay, I can kind of see the guys moving around. And you try to press up against the wall and you see, okay, now I can see them. But then there'd be another guy just around the corner as well, like just out of reach. They always put things in blind spots. And I would get caught quite often with those kind of just technical issues.
Caught with your pants down?
Snake luckily didn't drop his pants. They didn't have enough animation to do that. There was no butts shown in this game.
No snake butts in this game. No riding butts.
No, who's the guard from the first game?
No.
Aki? Because it's the guy from the fourth game too, right?
Right. Something like that.
Akihabara, or whatever his nickname is. I cannot remember. But yeah, no butts in this game, unfortunately, if that's what you're hoping for.
If you're hoping for some good old Metal Gear Solid butt, this game is lacking that.
It's not for you.
So, what were some other kind of negative points that you...
Particularly those two. Pushing elevator buttons from the outside, not from the inside. From the inside was fine, but every time I tried to push the button from the outside of the elevator to get on, I would just lean up against the wall.
Really?
I would try to stand in front of it and push the button, but it would always kind of be wonky and it wouldn't hit properly, or I had to be right dead center on it. Like, it wasn't very forgiving. I'd be next to it and it would just not hit it, and I don't know. Maybe it's just me not lining up correctly, but it seemed kind of unforgiving.
I didn't have an issue with it, so...
Okay. Maybe, again, playing on the Game Boy might be an issue there. Smaller buttons.
Maybe,
I'm not quite sure. But aside from that, there's not too many things I can really nitpick out. There's
harp on?
Yeah, not really. I mean, the music was pretty well done as well.
The thing that disappointed me was the being spotted music. Being spotted music wasn't exciting to me.
You weren't aroused?
I was not given a heightened sense of fear.
So you weren't aroused by the music or by the fact that there were no naked butts. So.
Exactly. Well, like the being spotted, outside of the being spotted music, I really, really liked a lot of the music in the game. But I mean, just from playing Metal Gear Solid 1, and the music when you're spotted is really just really like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's hard to match that, but kind of alluding to the VR missions. Oh, I love the VR missions. They're so awesome.
Yeah, they're pretty easy, most of them. I don't know about the sneaking parts, but the weapon parts are all pretty kind of lame, actually. They're just too easy.
They're easy, but they're nice and they're quick, and I like the timed attack.
Yeah.
And I like the music for it. And plus it gives the completion music is the same from Metal Gear Solid, but in 8-bit form. So
yeah.
I really like that. There was no impressive Snake, but it was all right.
Well, they replicated the same music when you fail as well.
Right.
That was the same music.
So, well, they changed it in certain parts, like the weapons section was different, and the advanced mode for the VR missions, they had different music as well.
Oh, I was thinking of in the main game if you die.
Oh, okay, yeah.
No, they replicated a lot of things very well. If you have not played this game, I think you would be pleasantly surprised at how good a job and how much effort went into this game.
Yes, I would agree. If you've not played this game and you are a fan of the Metal Gear Solid series, I would definitely suggest playing it on the Game Boy Advance player for the GameCube. But I would definitely, or I think you can play it on the Super Game Boy. Can you play Game Boy Color games?
I don't think so. I think that came out just before the Game Boy Color. I might be wrong, but I don't think Game Boy Color games work on that.
There's two different versions in Japan, so I didn't know if the second one made it stateside.
I don't know about that. I think there's only one, as far as I'm aware. Please correct us if we're wrong, but I don't believe there was more than one Game Boy player on the Super NES.
Okay. Because, there's 2 available in Japan, so I didn't know. Okay. Anywho, play it on the Super Advanced player then, or the Game Boy Advance player on the GameCube, because nice big screen, you can see everything.
Yeah, I can still recommend the game highly on the Game Boy Advance, and I'm sure the Game Boy Color. The Game Boy Advance is nice if you've got a backlit screen, or even the front lit was fine. It wasn't that terrible. Just seeing some of the things was a little awkward because they were small. Aside from that, it has great production, and it played completely fine. So.
Yeah, it's definitely no major glaring issues or really anything negative about it. It's from all the reviews I kind of looked up, I actually would agree with a lot of people on that. It was a damn good game.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some 10s and I thought that's a bit of a stretch, but definitely in very high 9s, 9.5s for sure.
Yeah, so definitely give it a try.
I'm sure it'll probably be released on the 3DS. What is that? The Game Boy Library, the downloadable library,
Maybe.
whatever that is.
I don't know.
I would be surprised if this game doesn't get released on that at some point. I'd be very surprised. And if it does get released, maybe that's a good option for people who can't track down the actual cart.
Mm-hmm. So anything else you want to add to that, really? I don't know if there's...
No, not really. I think we've covered all the ground you can on the game.
So and the one thing to bring up is that you do get rated on how well you do each chapter, and unless you've played the game before or something, expect to get some terrible ratings.
Basically all the time.
So...
Either that or we're just that terrible.
Yeah, that or the game is pointing out a flaw in our gaming.
Yeah, I suppose. I think I got great once and poor once, and every other time was terrible.
I got a couple goods and some greats, and that was about it. Like, it was like, great, good, terrible, 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 great, good, terrible, 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 great, terrible, terrible. It's like, okay.
It seemed if you didn't do anything in under a minute, it was terrible.
So, but yeah,
you can ignore that and just enjoy the game.
Exactly. You can just, all right, whatever, screw you. I'll do what I want. So yeah, Metal Gear Solid, Ghost Babel, awesome game. Play it, enjoy it, live it. I don't know about live it, but
well, maybe not.
don't live it.
Don't breathe it.
Don't. Yeah, play it and enjoy it. We'll leave it at that. Short
game, so not difficult to get through.
Yeah, no, it's not like 20 hours or anything like that, so not at all. Yeah. So I guess you want to wrap this thing up.
Let's wrap it up.
On its way.
All right, thank you again for listening to Power On Podcast Portable. We will be back with another episode very soon. We hope you enjoyed this one.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Have a good day.